I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hey guys, welcome to day 4 in the Laurie Vallow trial. I don't really want to spend too much time today. I just want to deal with Adam Cox, who's one of the 3 siblings of Laurie Vallow. She's one of 4 children. Alex is her brother, who was accused of murdering Charles Vallow, conspiring with Laurie to murder him. Adam is the brother that's on the stand, and then Summer Shiflett is her other sister. So there are 4 children. One of them is deceased, the other one on trial for murder. So we're going to sort of be looking at that. I've made a couple of notes that I kind of want to share with you guys, but I think let's sort of just jump into that testimony. I've already watched it. I was hoping that Kay Woodcock would be on the stand next, but she's not. So let's start with Adam Cox. Some pretty interesting moments there. Sybil, I'm glad you're joining us. Good to see you. So yeah, let's join the live stream about 45 minutes late, maybe a little bit longer. So just a quick note. Does anyone know what this seal, what DTA Deuce stands for? Has anyone thought about that? Anyone know what the Great Seal of the state of Arizona, what those words actually refer to? Well, ironically enough, it is God enriches. God enriches. And I say it's ironic because we're dealing with a case that is about greed, that is about someone believing in God and then being enriched through those beliefs in a way, which I think is kind of quite interesting. Anyway, we're going to go straight to Adam Cox, and we're going to find out that him and Laurie haven't spoken really in about 7 years, that there's quite a lot of drama behind the scenes, that they were actually quite a broken family. And did that play a role in the dysfunctional events that followed? What do you guys think? Now, one thing that's frustrating with the testimony today was apparently the cameras aren't allowed to be shown the text messages. So although the prosecutor goes through them and the witness deals with them, you don't actually see them on screen, which for me was a little frustrating. Let's just quickly greet the guys that are here. Christina, good to see you. Bank Leaks, okay, good to see you. Lynn Cartier, good to see you as well. And welcome to Matisse Poudans, the new member. Thanks for joining us. So I think he's about to be sworn in. Is there anyone here that's already watched this? I'd just be interested to know. Anyone here already watched this testimony? It played out about half an hour ago. That's the joy of delayed live stream. You can sort of jump ahead, right? Christina, you said you've seen it already. Okay.
And what do you currently do? Sir, would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Adam Cox.
How old are you, Adam?
I just turned 56.
And what do you currently do for a living or for life?
I'm a pro pickleball player and instructor.
Where are you living now? Just what state?
I live in Arizona.
Back in July of 2019, where were you living?
Wichita, Kansas.
Okay. Prior to...
So one thing I want you guys to sort of pay attention to is this is Laurie's brother, And I think, remember, Alex Cox is dead. Alex Cox is actually the person who pulled the trigger, who committed this crime. But I think you kind of get a sense of both Laurie and Alex Cox through Adam. You get a sense of the type of people these are. You get a sense of the family dynamics. You get the sense of what their relationships are with their parents or with one another. And to some extent, they aren't relationships anymore. How some of them have formed little cliques within the family. Some people are talking to one another, others aren't. And then also the sort of physicality, like he's a professional pickleball player, which is quite interesting. It's certainly an unconventional job in a sense. And if you think about Alex was what was Alex's job? He was sort of a stand-up comic and basically Laurie Bellows' sidekick, right?
Your pickleball career, did you have a different career?
I did.
What was that?
I was a radio morning show host.
Okay. Is that why you were in Wichita?
Yes.
Did that make you travel a lot?
Yes.
So I want to talk to you about your family first, okay?
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yes.
How many?
5 or
And-
4 siblings.
Can you tell us the names of the 5 siblings you had growing up?
Stacy, Alex, Lori, and Summer.
For Alex, did people refer to him as Al sometimes?
Yes.
And for Summer, did people call her Sum?
Yes.
Were your sisters Lori and Summer close?
Yes.
Laurie was referred to as Lo or Lolo. Something else that I think is just important to think about at this early stage is Laurie's brother's a prosecution witness. Laurie's brother is testifying for the prosecution, essentially against his sister. And you'll see at a certain point, he describes her as crazy. He doesn't seem to have obvious animus against her, even when she's cross-examining him. But you can tell that there's definitely something between them.
I want to ask you about another family member. Back in 2019, Melanie Boudreau. How is she related to your family?
Melanie is my oldest sister, Stacy's daughter. So she's my niece.
And was your sister Lori close with Melanie?
Yes.
Do you see your sister Lori in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you point her out and tell us what she's wearing?
She's sitting there wearing black blazer.
Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
It shall.
In July of 2019, was your sister married?
Yes.
Who was she married to?
Charles Vallow.
And so in July of 2019, was your sister known as Lori Vallow?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how long Lori and Charles were married?
I think over 10 years.
Okay. Do you know if your sister, since the passing of Charles, married Chad Daybell?
Yes.
Did Lori, your sister Lori, have any children from prior marriages before she and Charles got together?
Yes.
And who were those?
Colby and Tylee.
Okay. And were they from the same marriage?
No.
By July of 2019, was Colby an adult?
Yes.
Do you have a son, Zach?
Yes.
Did your son, Zach, ever live with Lori and Charles for a bit?
Yes.
Did he move in there after Colby moved out?
Yes.
In July of 2019, was Lori's other daughter, Tylee, still under the age of 18?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not Charles helped raise Colby and Tylee?
Yes.
Did you know if Charles had any children from prior marriage?
Yes.
Do you know how many children he had from a prior marriage?
I think 2.
Okay. And do you know if either of those two children lived with Lori or Charles?
Visited. I don't know if they ever lived there.
Did Lori and Charles have any kids together?
JJ?
Was JJ adopted? Okay. So did they adopt him together?
Yes.
Okay. So in 2019, did Lori and Charles have just JJ and Tylee as their kids living with them?
Yes.
Did Lori and Charles always live in Arizona?
No.
Where else did you know them to live?
Texas and Hawaii.
Okay.
So something else I've spoken about quite often is I don't know if one wants to call it trauma, but certainly the burden of dislocation. And so often in crimes, you see the crime itself preceded by quite a sort of unusual situation where someone leaves home, right? And they move somewhere else. And so when that happens, everything is lost. All those relationships, your home is essentially lost, and then you create, I guess, another one, right? But I think to the extent that one keeps moving, there's a sort of almost a disposable quality to one's life, where you sort of have friends, you have possessions, and then you sort of get rid of them, and then you go somewhere else and you start a new life. Now, if you think about Lori, she's in Hawaii, she's in Idaho. That whole idea of you don't just leave a life behind, but lives are lost in the process, right? And think about other cases where you also have moving from somewhere to somewhere else, and then there's a crime. Think about the Ramseys, where they literally go from Atlanta to Boulder, and then a crime happens there. Think about the McCanns, where they're in Portugal when something happens there. Think about Amanda Knox. She's in Italy when something goes wrong there. So this idea of being somewhere else is definitely a stressor that I think one's got to pay attention to. As Sybil says, just like the Watts family, the Wattses moved from, I can never remember, is it North Carolina? And so you see it in many, many instances. Another example that's, I think, different, though, is the alleged Long Island serial killer, where he's between locations, between New York and Long Island, Massapequa Park. And those are very different places. And I do think there's a psychology of place as well. There are some places that you want to get away from, and there's some places that you want to be in, right? North Carolina. Okay, so that's just something to think about whenever you're dealing with a case, is that sort of sense of dislocatedness. Another example is Jodi Arias.
We had talked about your brother, Alex, or Al. Were you close with your brother, Alex?
Somewhat.
Do you know where Alex was living in July of 2019? What state?
Arizona.
And can you describe your brother Alex's relationship with your sister Lori? Were they close?
I mean, I don't know if close is the word I would use growing up, but
Describe
just
for us.
normal brother-sister relationship, I guess.
As they became adults, did they continue to be close, or what do you recall of their relationship?
Yeah, over the last, I guess 4 or 5 years.
The last 4 or 5 years between them was what?
They were closer, they were close for like a year and a half, is what I remember.
Before this happened?
Yeah, they became oddly close for a while.
Yes, I think that's important to stress. They became oddly close. Now, if you think about it, it seems like Alex Cox literally committed murder for Laurie because of what Laurie felt, because of what Laurie wanted, and then committed another. If you think about it, although there's conspiracy to commit murder, who is committing all of these murders? Who killed Tammy? Well, in that case, I don't think it was Alex, but other than Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife, who committed literally all three of the other murders, right? And then you've got to think about it. Why is Alex doing this? You know, and it does make you wonder how oddly close was their relationship. Was it just they were just sort of becoming closer as brother and sister because some siblings were less close, or was it actually, I guess, in a way, inappropriate? I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider.
How about the relationship between Charles and Alex? Do you recall what that was like?
Just a normal brother-in-law relationship, I guess.
Did you ever know them to do things just the two of them?
No, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Did your family sort of do a lot of big family events where everyone might be together?
Yes. Yeah.
Birthday meals, holidays?
Yes.
Adam, did you grow up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes.
And are you still a member of that?
Yes.
At some point, was your brother Alex excommunicated?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
I think he was excommunicated twice. So I'm not sure the dates or when that happened, but when he was an adult.
In 2019, was he still excommunicated to your knowledge?
Yes.
What does that mean to be excommunicated?
It means that you do certain things to where the church it takes away your membership from the church.
Are you able to go to temple if you're excommunicated?
No.
Is that important?
Going to the church in our faith is important, yes.
Let's talk about your relationship with Charles Vallow. Did you and Charles ever text?
Yes.
Did you and Charles?
I just want to highlight this comment because it was something I was thinking the whole time that I was watching this. You know, why didn't Adam call the police right when he found out that Alex had killed Charles? Absolutely right. You'll hear, this is a bit of a spoiler, you'll hear at the end of his testimony that he says something to the effect of, the moment he heard that Charles was dead, he knew that Laurie and Alex had killed him, right? So then why don't you tell the police? Like he sort of says he didn't know what to do, and he called Kay Woodcock, Charles's sister. I think he called his mother, and then they had a falling out. Why doesn't he call the police? Literally, yeah, I know that these two people committed murder. Maybe you should tell the police that. And for a very long time, the police sort of understood what had happened in a different way. And maybe there's a little bit more to it. I suppose you could say, you know, it's his own sister and brother, and now, you know, and you don't have a good relationship with them anyway. Is it going to look like you've got a bone to pick with them, right? And the other thing is, Adam was behind the scenes trying to arrange some kind of confrontation with Charles. And in a weird way, that does play into the self-defense thing. So if he puts up his hand and says, you know what, she or Alex killed Charles, or Laurie and Alex killed Charles, she can say, yeah, in self-defense, you know, you guys were coming after me. And there's kind of proof of that. Just not, you know, like coming after her in the sense of, well, let's have dinner together and record it. Let's go after her in the sense of have an intervention. Not like, a massive confrontation. And so it is an interesting question, but I think there's a caveat to that, which is it kind of plays into the self-defense narrative to some extent. Although you would think that if he told the police what he knew, that he suspected it wasn't self-defense, that you would wonder what they would think, right? Yvonne, good to see you here. Thanks for
Talk on
your
the phone?
comment,
Yes.
Brenda.
When Lori and Charles were married, were you aware that Charles would pay for things for the family, like cell phones?
Yeah, I heard that there's people in our family that they're on his business self plan.
Or car insurance?
Don't know about car insurance, but
You knew about the cell phones.
yeah.
Did you know what Charles did for a living?
Yes.
What was it?
He sold insurance.
Did you know what kind of insurance?
No, he explained it one time, but he was doing something with school teachers or helping them with their situation.
Okay. Did you know whether or not Charles traveled a lot for work?
Yes.
Was he traveling to other states?
Yes.
And was that sort of throughout his marriage with Lori?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware of whether or not your sister Lori worked prior to marrying Charles?
Yes.
Do you know what kind of work she did?
She was a hairstylist.
Okay. After she married Charles, did she continue to work outside the home?
At a hair salon?
Yeah.
No, not that I know of.
So just to quickly note, Lori was married to a millionaire. Like Charles was really wealthy. He sold life insurance. And once she married him, she didn't need to work. Of course, when it looked like they were going to get divorced, it kind of looked like she was going to need to look after herself. Did she want to? Now, I've already said that I think the motive here is greed. Do you really think the motive is greed for money, or is the motive greed for power? What do you think? Because money is a means to an end, right?
Was it your understanding Charles worked so she could take care of the children?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
So you were unaware of her doing any sort of outside work like she had done prior to being married to him?
Yeah, I don't know any of that.
At some point, did you learn or become aware of the fact that Lori and Charles were having some marital problems?
Yes.
Just yes or no, did you ever talk to Charles about why he and Lori were having marital problems?
Yes.
You yourself personally, were you aware of Lori having any beliefs that were outside of what is accepted by the LDS religion?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you were aware of that you knew to be outside the LDS religion?
Lori told me that she was in the process of translating from a mortal human being to an immortal human being, a celestial state.
That's something that the LDS religion supports?
I haven't heard of it and that it's happened here on Earth yet.
Did you ever hear her talking about being married to someone that is relevant in your religion?
Yes, I have heard that.
Did she tell that to you?
I don't know. I can't recall her telling me that, but I remember other people telling me that.
Okay. Was there anything else that you recall her telling you that she believed that seemed outside the LDS religion?
Yes. There was a time where she told me that she had more priesthood authority than the priesthood.
So remember what I said a moment ago, when we talk about greed, is it greed for money or is it greed for power? And you've just heard him say that Lori told him that she's got greater authority, which is another word for power, she's got greater authority than the entire sort of LDS priesthood. In other words, Laurie was putting herself above the priesthood, which is typically a sort of a male occupied area, I guess. And so she was sort of presenting herself as quite a powerful being, and her brother didn't really buy it, right? And Laurie didn't like that, so because he wasn't with her, he got sort of blocked, right? That's what happened when you didn't agree with Laurie. But think about that. It's quite a statement to make, that you've got more religious authority than the highest religious authority of your church. Think about that as a power grab or power statement, right?
And why, can you explain for us what that means, why that was significant to you?
In our religion, the men hold the priesthood, and she said that she's in a state where she's above that.
Okay.
I didn't quite understand it, but very strange.
Did you confront her about these beliefs?
Confront her? No.
Did you discuss with her about these beliefs?
I just let her say what she wanted to say.
Was there ever a conversation where, when she was telling you these things, where she asked if you thought she was crazy?
Yes.
How did you respond to that?
I said, I don't know if you're crazy, but what you're telling me is not true. It's not real.
Now imagine that in reality, like Laurie is presenting herself as this sensible lawyer, right? And her brother is in the witness box saying that he believes she's crazy. And there are going to be other people coming up to say something similar. And Laurie so far isn't acknowledging her beliefs to the jury. One wonders if she's going to do that. Is she going to do that? Is she going to testify and acknowledge them in this setting? What do you guys think?
After you said that, what happened
Thanks,
to your
Lynn.
relationship with Laurie?
She stopped talking to me.
Were you ever aware of Laurie believing that people could be dark or possessed by evil spirits?
I later have learned that, yes.
Did you ever try to tell your family about the beliefs that Laurie had expressed to you?
Yes.
What was your family's reaction?
One of the reaction was, she's in a delusion, let her do whatever she's doing and she'll come out of it at some point.
How did this impact your relationship with your family when you're bringing up these concerns about Laurie?
They basically cut me off.
So let me ask you guys a question. In a way, I've had to deal with similar people in my life. How do you deal with a situation like that? How do you deal with a family member or a friend that seems to go off the deep end, right? And, I guess there are 2 or 3 options. One is that you confront them, and then how effective is that? I mean, you confront them and you say, you know what, this doesn't make any sense and whatever. And then the response often is, well, if you're not with me, you're against me. Or, okay, so you obviously don't believe that or whatever. And then you no longer even part of their friendship circle, right? The other response is to just sort of, as Adam has done here, just sort of leave it and then see if in the fullness of time it's going to improve. But then what happened in this situation? In this situation, did things improve? Well, they got way worse, right? So how do you deal with this problem? And I don't know, have any of you guys had a problem like this? And dealt with it successfully, because I think it's a very difficult problem. You know, it's almost like the more you oppose these irrational beliefs, the more the person defends them. So how do you deal with it?
So you bringing up your concerns about Lori's beliefs being at odds with the LDS religion sort of terminated.
Okay, so yeah, let me just, Natalie's asking, who's the man testifying? It's Adam Cox. It is the guy who murdered Charles's brother, Alex, right? So it's Alex's brother, and it's also Laurie's brother. So let me just put that on screen. Adam Cox, Laurie's brother, testifying. And the irony is that he actually went to Phoenix, and he was there at the same time that Charles was killed. You know, he was actually there to meet with. I think the idea was that he was going to meet Alex, and then Alex just stopped communicating with him. Yeah, full brother.
Your good relationship with your family.
Yes.
At the end of June of 2019, do you recall Charles sending?
Yeah, I know that he played minor league baseball.
And
Don't know what
in
happened there.
this email was the person pretending to be Charles asking about writing a book about his career.
Yes.
Was that something you knew Charles was not interested in?
No, he's not, or wasn't.
After you saw.
Amy says, not every battle is yours to fight. Detaching is a choice too, but excuse me, I'm a little bit ill. But just think about what happened here. Look at what happened where you detached, and then someone went so far off the rails that they essentially became a serial killer, right? And you had a family member that was aware of it. So what are you supposed to do? And I think another question is also, what were the parents doing in the situation? So literally what is happening is the family is fragmenting. And maybe the answer is that the patriarch or the matriarch brings the whole family together and says, let's find out what's going on here. Because it's within that period of fragmentation that, isn't it true that things can unravel? And one sibling doesn't really have much power of another sibling, but the whole family unit might have some influence. Doesn't that make sense?
Saw those emails that Charles had forwarded to you, where someone was reaching out to Chad. Were they inviting Chad out to Arizona?
Yes.
After reading that and getting that forward and talking with Charles, did you believe that Lori was having an affair with Chad Daybell?
Yes.
Did you and Charles spend time talking about that?
Yes.
So that's now another sign that something cuckoo is going on, right? But did you guys catch Lori confronting Nancy? What's her surname? Was it Nancy Hancock? The lady who was dating Charles went on a date with him the day before his death. And she says, do you normally go out with married men? I was quite surprised the prosecutor didn't say something, but I couldn't help thinking, well, what about you, Lori?
Was he kind of, I guess, in a tailspin? I'm not sure the best words to say from learning that.
Yeah, he seemed a little desperate.
Did Charles have some idea on how he thought he might be able to get Lori back into the LDS faith?
Yes.
What did you understand that to be?
Charles just thought that Lori was going overboard and that she was going to the temple like 5 times a week, and that's not normal in our religion, and that she was going a little off the wall. So he figured that if she got her temple recommend taken away from her, that she would come back to normal, who she was before she started in all this things that she was believing.
Now, you told us that you had heard yourself some ideas by Lori that were outside the LDS religion. Did Charles also tell you about other things that she had told him?
Yes.
Okay. And so did you talk with Charles about something that we'll term an intervention?
Yes.
What did you mean by an intervention?
Intervention means Charles he's kind of desperate because nobody in our family would talk to him. I'm sure that, Lori had told people in our family not to talk to him. So he thought that, having an intervention would be getting in front of her, recording her, giving it to the stake president, or having the stake president hear what she was talking about and hear the crazy things that she was saying.
So the intervention was part of the way to try to get her to come back to the mainstream LDS beliefs.
Yes.
Did Charles ask you to help him with this intervention?
Yes, he did.
Did you guys have a specific plan, like on X date at X time, we're going to do this?
No.
Had you talked to Charles about potentially going to Lori's and recording her on your phone?
Yes.
Did you talk to Charles and text him about another idea of having a family dinner and again recording her so that you could play that for the stake president?
Yes.
We're using a term there, stake president. Who is that? What is that in your religion?
Well, in our religion, we have our churches organized where we have wards, and then like 4 or 5 wards are in a stake, and then there's a president of the stake, and so it's somebody who's in charge of everybody in the stake.
I first heard it as state president at stake with a
someone that's
K.
pretty high up in the church.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the idea was to bring any of these recordings to show she's saying these things to his attention.
Yes.
So they're trying to bring about kind of a peer pressure
Again,
from the church,
point
pressure
of
from the
that
family,
was to
right?
just try to take away her temple recommend.
Yes.
So on July 9th of 2019, did Charles talk to you about him flying you out so that you can help him with this intervention?
Yes, he did.
So just to put you in the picture, Charles was shot on the 11th. So Charles contacted Adam and said, let's go and get this organized. I'll fly you to Phoenix on the 10th. So it was on the 11th that Charles was shot, which is, I think, a Thursday. And you'll find out a little bit later that he only found out, although Adam was in town, he only found out from the news that Charles had been shot on the 13th, 2 days later on that Saturday.
And did he offer to purchase your flight
Yes.
to bring you to Arizona?
Yes.
At that time, did your parents live here in Arizona?
Yes, they did.
At that time, was Lori here in Arizona?
Yes, she was.
And you told us your brother Alex was living here as well at that time?
Yes.
Was your sister Summer also living here at that time?
Yes.
And after Charles purchased your tickets, did you reach out to anyone in your family to ask if you could stay with them?
Yes.
Who did you reach out to?
Alex, my brother.
And did he offer to let you stay with him?
Yes, he did.
Were you supposed to fly in on the next day, July 10th?
Yes.
So your understanding was when you flew in on the 10th, you'd reach out to Alex and you'd spend the night there.
Yes.
Did you end up staying with him?
No, I did not.
So when you landed in Phoenix on July 10th of 2019. Do you recall what time of the day it was approximately?
Sometime around lunch.
Okay. And did you reach out to Alex?
Yes, I texted him as soon as I landed.
Did you get a text response back?
No, I did not.
Was that unusual?
Yes.
So he's expecting you, right?
Yes.
Did you try calling him?
Yes, I did.
Did he answer your phone?
No, he did not.
Again, was that unusual to you?
Yes.
Did you think anything was odd at that time?
Yeah, at first I was like, he can't be that busy. He knows I'm coming.
Did Alex ever respond to you on the 10th?
No.
So he ghosted you.
Yes.
Natalie, this is the trial for the murder of Charles Valla and the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
What did you think when you didn't hear back from Alex?
I just thought it was very strange and bizarre.
Okay. So you were supposed to be staying at Alex's when you talked to him on the 9th. Did Alex ever text you between when you guys talked and when you landed saying, oh, I'm going to go stay at Lori's?
No.
Did Alex ever call or text you and tell you, you know, I can't have you stay with me. I know I initially said okay, but not anymore.
No.
So he just ignored you.
Yes.
Where'd you end up staying?
My mom and dad's house.
Okay. On July 10th, did you understand Charles was also flying into Phoenix?
Yes.
Did you see Charles on the 10th?
No, I did not.
Did you see your sister Lori on the 10th?
No, I did not.
So you told us you stayed with your parents. What did you do on the 10th?
They picked me up and we went to lunch. And then we just, I think, hung out at the house.
You said your son Zach lived here at the time?
Yes.
Who was he living with at that time?
I think he was living with my mom and dad.
Okay. So although you didn't talk with Charles on the 10th, did you have an understanding of what he was going to do the morning of the 11th?
Yes.
What was that?
He was going to go pick up JJ, his son. It was his turn to, I guess, have him for a few days or whatever.
So that's quite interesting, the fact that Charles being at Lori's was planned in the sense that it was his turn to have JJ. I think it was a Thursday morning, so one wonders whether it would have gone over into the weekend, but that's basically why he was there. He was there on a scheduled visit to his son, which ended up being kind of him being lured into a situation. The irony is that they were trying to lure her into a situation as well.
Were Charles and JJ really close?
Yes.
So the morning of July 11th, you were not expecting to get together with Charles at 7 in the
Thanks a
morning,
lot,
right?
Chris.
No.
Did you get a text message from Charles?
Yes, I did.
And did you learn where Alex was?
Yes, I did.
Where did you learn Alex was?
Alex was at Lori's house.
When you learned this, was Charles texting you sort of in
Come on.
real time as he is
Come.
coming to the house,
Yes.
explaining to you what he's seeing and what's going on?
Yes.
And are you responding back to him?
Yes.
So you're at your mom and dad's house when you start getting these text messages from Charles?
Yes.
When you learned that Alex was at your sister's, what were you thinking?
I just thought something weird is happening because he never answered my text the whole day I was there, never returned a call. And then all of a sudden he said he's at Lori's house. And I didn't even know what to think at that point. I thought something was off.
So immediately you knew something was off.
Yeah.
from the prior day where Alex ghosted you to now he's at your sister's that morning when Charles was going over to pick up JJ.
Yes.
Were you concerned that Alex was at your sister's house?
A little concerning, yes.
Have you seen text messages that you and your brother-in-law Charles had sort of making the flight reservations and leading up to?
So you'll notice up until this point, and there's been quite a lot of testifying so far, Laurie hasn't said anything. Notice what she objects to, right? And I want you to, once you've noticed what she's objected to, I want you to ask why you think she's objecting to that.
The morning of the 11th.
Yes.
And were those all messages that you two had as you're trying to figure out how to have this intervention?
Yes.
And then ultimately, what you are seeing and saying that morning at 7:30 in the morning?
Yes.
There it comes.
And I've shown defendant exhibit 210, if I can have a paralegal approach with that. Adam, if you can take a look at those and let me know if you recognize those as text messages that you had with Charles, sort of the 9th, 10th, and 11th, as you are interacting leading up to that morning and including the morning of the 11th.
Yes.
Your Honor, the state will move to admit exhibit 210 pursuant to 8031 as present sense impressions.
Yes, Your Honor, we object in lieu of that is a report and not the full extraction.
All right, well.
Look how Adam's fiddling with his hands. He's definitely quite nervous
That
at this
particular
point.
objection wouldn't prohibit admission. It would go toward weight, but give me a second here.
So why do you think Laurie's objecting to the admission of these texts? These are texts between Charles and Adam. Why do you think she's objecting to that? And it's like a string of texts that sort of keep going back and forth on the morning of Charles's death. Why do you think she's objecting?
And if I
Thanks,
may publish
Hazel.
it, then, Your Honor. If I could have the elbow, thank you.
So I don't know if you've noticed the camera has since panned to the left, and that is so that you can't see what's on the screen over here, which for me is damn frustrating. But I think it's because it's one of the protocols from the court, that certain things are not going to be shown to the media. What we're going to find out is that there's constant communication, messages being seen, messages being read, messages being responded to, and then suddenly that stops at 7:37, which is probably very close to the time of Charles's death. Maybe he died 2 minutes later, but very close to his time of death. Remember, Charles was there to take JJ to school. So think about that time in terms of that. And then also, that message, the last message was only read at 12:13 p.m. Guess who read that message? So anyway, we're going to get to that in this testimony. Just something to bear in mind.
Adam, I'm going to start sort of going back to, in Exhibit 210, the conversations that you and Charles were having as you're trying to come up with a way to have this intervention, all right? So you learned that Charles was reaching out. Well, let me ask you this. You had learned from Charles about this fictitious email, correct?
Yes.
Did you learn that Charles had reached out to Lori about it?
One more time?
Did you learn that Charles had reached out to Lori about this email?
Yes.
Did you learn that he had reached out to Chad Daybell's wife about it?
I think I remember that.
These are text messages. Were you also receiving emails from Charles?
Yes.
So do you guys remember there were fictitious emails apparently being sent from Charles to Chad? Does anyone remember that? So I'm going to show you one of them. I think it's this one. And as far as I know, this email was Lori possibly impersonating Charles. So she writes, "Hello, Chad. Hope you're doing well. This is Charles Vella from Arizona. We really enjoyed having you stay with us back in November when you came to the Preparing a People conference. I appreciated you taking the time to talk to me about the book I've been working on. Well, more than 6 months later, I still haven't made much progress on it, but I feel an urgency to get it done." Now, if you think about it, if Lori did write this letter, it's almost like she's saying Charles is okay with, remember, Charles is like quite a big, strong guy. Charles is okay with Chad being friends with Lori. Chad's not suspicious. Charles is not suspicious. Charles is not angry. Charles is not concerned. Charles likes Chad. Don't you get that impression? So can you guys see the letter? Let's just blow it up a little bit more. So he goes on to write, "I'll cut to the chase. I'm willing to pay you well to help me get this book into shape as my ghostwriter. I really liked your autobiography and the tone you took in sharing experiences without preaching." Do you really think that Charles would have said this to the guy Laurie's having an affair with? "I want to give you money. I want you to write something. Is there any way you could come here for a couple of days and help me get the book underway? I feel talking in person would be much more valuable than a phone call or video chat, mainly because I would like you to read through some of my journals." Isn't this Laurie's attempt to lure Chad to where she is? She says, it would help me to know whether I truly have a book in me and whether you want to team up on it. I played minor league baseball and have plenty of stories that my audience could relate to, along with the knowledge I've gained running my own company. If you think how absurd this is, Chad is a small-time self-published author. His books really weren't selling very well. Charles is a millionaire. Is he really going to be going to this dude for book advice? Anyway, he says, "So I do feel the book would contain valuable information even beyond the convention circuit. I'm out of town until Saturday, but I would gladly fly you down here early next week before the holiday and cover your expenses. You could stay in our guest room like before or in a hotel if you prefer. I hate to take you away from your family, but I know this book is vital to my speaking success. I understand if you don't want to take part in the project, but I would definitely make it worth your time. With admiration, Charles." I mean, think about just how crazy this story is, right?
Does this sort of array of messages start to involve where you and Charles are talking about having you come out to Arizona to help with this intervention?
Yes.
And so do we see on the 9th, you letting him know that you could fly out tomorrow and come home Saturday or Sunday.
Yes.
Do we see as you continued on, he tells you that he could fly you in on Southwest, and he's telling you he's just right now landing in LA, right?
Yes.
And you knew he traveled a lot for work.
Yes.
When we get to the 9th at 9:11 a.m., did you get a message from Charles about how you were going to get everyone together without Lori knowing that you're going to have this intervention?
Yes.
And is that one of the ideas where you indicated that I'll go see Lori at her house and have a talk with her and keep your phone on record?
Yes.
So that was sort of one idea of a potential way to show the stake president that she was having these ideas outside the LDS faith?
Yes.
Does Charles kind of tell you he's not sure that that's really going to work?
Yeah.
He says, I think she'll leave, but it's worth a try.
Yeah.
Did you then suggest also have a family dinner with everyone and then say, always leave my phone on to record what I say and what everyone else says?
Yes.
And then you go on to say that's to have proof for Holmes. Who's Holmes?
President Holmes. He was our stake president, or their stake president.
You were in Wichita, but he was the stake president here.
I lived here before, and he was in my ward, so I know him.
So when you're talking about the stake president, Holmes is who it actually is?
Yes.
Okay. On the 9th, does Charles tell you that got it, but honestly, if you, Zach, Brandon, and me go to him, that should be enough? She will feel like we ambushed her, but something has to be done. She'll be real careful what she says. What, had you brought Brandon into this yet? Like, did you have a plan to have him come with?
So think about what they're talking about here. They're talking about ambushing Lori, but kind of in a verbal sense, not in a physical sense, certainly not with guns. Ambushing her in a way of confronting her about her beliefs, right? Whereas Lori was allegedly plotting to ambush Charles, not to change his mind about anything, but to get money. You know, like if he died, then she would inherit the insurance. Interestingly, you're going to find out about this a little bit later. Charles actually did send divorce papers to Lori, and then Lori, they described her as flighty. Lori just sort of avoided signing them. So when Nancy talks about this thing that they were separated and that he was trying to divorce her, it's not like the other woman making up stories. Charles was like trying to divorce her, but Lori wouldn't allow it to happen. Why do you think Lori didn't want to allow it to happen? Because the moment they divorced, well, then she can't legally inherit the life insurance, or certainly there's probably going to be a legal hurdle, right? I want to, just while I'm interrupting, just show you this email from Charles. It was sent just before July. Remember, Charles was killed in the middle of July, 11 July. So this was 2 weeks before his death. Charles writes this to Adam, right? Subject, Chad letter from Lori. Adam, open this letter and see what she did. I'm not sure if the relationship with her and Chad Abel, but they are up to something. Look at those words. They are up to something. She created an email alias for me, as I've never set this one up. She sent this yesterday, and I guess she forgot all her emails are on the computer at my house. I asked her to explain it, and she started blaming you, Brandon, and me for perpetuating a scheme against her. So can you see how it's sort of Davo? Can you see how when, well, let me just make it a little bit larger. So let me just do it like that. Can you guys see it? Can you see how when they accuse her of something, she just accuses them of the opposite? She says, he writes, just more of her paranoia. She will not explain it. I'm going to send it to Chad Abel's wife. Her name is Tammy, and I found her email address on their website. I've got her cell number too. Sounds very suspicious to me. What do you think? Whenever she gets caught doing this kind of stuff, she starts blaming everybody else, mostly me, you, and Brandon. Brandon and I are the victims of her craziness. This is, remember, 2 weeks before his death. And remember, him writing a letter to Tammy is definitely going to be giving Tammy red flags, and she needs to. And how does Tammy respond to this? I think she just wiped it under the carpet, essentially. It shows you it is sometimes important to think critically about the information that comes on your desk. Brandon and I are the victims of her craziness. I mean, isn't that the truth? Literally, Charles was killed 2 weeks later, and Brandon, there's an attempted murder on his life. I wish you luck trying to help her. I was the only one brave enough to try to get her help in January, and look what happened to me. The whole family put a scarlet letter on me. Maybe now they can see what they're up against. Thanks. And that's I think, the sign-off from Charles.
You?
No, but Brandon played basketball with us on that night. So me and Zach and Brandon played basketball where President Holmes played basketball at a church. So that was that reference.
Okay. So you thought if we go to the church, Brandon will be there and he can help you
Yeah,
talk about
say
this.
that. Yeah.
Okay. But Brandon's not part of this conversation right here, right?
No.
Then does it kind of go back to Charles asking for your information so he can make your flight reservations?
Yes.
Okay. Then at 1:13 p.m., does Charles let you know that your flights are booked and that he emailed that to you?
Mm-hmm.
And then does he go on to say, I'm really uneasy about how she will respond, not only to you, but to me and Zach and Brandon, right?
Yes.
In talking with Charles and this intervention, was there a constant concern of how she would respond to trying to take away her temple recommend?
Yes.
Was some of that based upon your understanding of the things she had said to Charles in the past?
That and others. Apparently, Lori was flighty. When Charles tried to serve her divorce papers, she disappeared and nobody knew where she was. So in Charles's mind, that she could be flighty and just take off again where nobody would know where she is. So there was some definite reference to that as well.
Okay. Then it goes on to say, I'll pick up JJ and take him to school. So you knew what he was doing that next morning, right?
Yes.
And you said she'll be there, right?
Yes.
Friday the same. So you knew his idea was he was going to be with his son in the mornings, Thursday and Friday.
Yes.
And then you said she'll be highly suspicious about recording. If you can bring a second device and put your phone on the counter or turn it off, it might help. Is that sort of the same idea that he was unsure that she would trust you showing up there and trying to ask her about those things?
Yes, this was all just it seemed like Charles was just desperate, and he wanted to do anything he could to, this last ditch effort to try to shake Lori loose of whatever she was under, some spell that he said. So
Well said, under a spell.
That's basically what happened.
And then does he go on again to talk about that he really thinks the only thing that's going to
Well said,
break her out of
Pauline.
this is going
Well
home?
said.
Yeah. Yes.
And that she's hurting too many families and that he's upset his is gone.
Yes.
Does he say that he still loves her?
Yes.
And does he think that?
So what do you think actually happened here? Do you think Lori fell out of love with Charles, or that Charles fell out of love with Lori, or neither, that just Lori's interest in religion made her kind of unpalatable to Charles. And what do you think happened? Like, do you think it started with Charles falling out of love with Laurie, or what do you think was caused the breakup between Charles and Laurie? Because what I've thought is definitely quite interesting was Charles being on a date the night before, and Laurie saying to this woman, "We were still married," right? Meanwhile, he is trying to serve her divorce papers. Now we know that she wanted money, but one also wonders whether she wanted to stay married to Charles, like kind of to begin with. Charles isn't here to give the answer to that. Well, I do wonder what you guys think.
She's basically potentially gone forever.
Yes.
And then we see that he corrected slots to Lori, right?
Yes.
Typo.
I mean, one possibility is that as Laurie started to become aware that perhaps Charles wasn't in love with her, she turned to God to be soothed in a way, for comfort. I think that's definitely a possibility. In other words, what got Laurie, remember, she's not a hairdresser anymore, so her whole life is just really in the family. So what gets her kind of activated in a sense? I think it's an interesting question.
Yes. Lots of typos.
On July 10th at 3:34, do you get a text from Charles asking if you're in Phoenix?
Yes.
And do you respond, yes, you're going to Summers, and that you'll call him?
Yes.
And then does Charles let you know he's got a meeting, but he'll try to call you before he goes to see Lo? Who is Lo?
Lo is Lori.
So people would call her Lo or Lolo.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you remember if you talked to Charles on the 10th?
On the 10th, what day was that?
The day before. So when you flew in, did you ever talk to Charles?
No, I don't remember talking to him then.
So even though you guys had attempted to call, you don't recall if you ever spoke with him that evening or afternoon?
Right.
So at this point, you'd said you went to Summers in the text messages, and then later you stayed at your parents' for the night.
Yes.
And then you knew that Charles would be going to pick up his son the next morning. Did you assume that you and Charles would meet up or talk sometimes later that day?
I figured so.
Okay, but you had no scheduled timeline for
Nothing
that?
planned.
Okay. So next in Exhibit 210, we see text messages from July 11th of 2019 at 7:35 a.m. where Charles texted you, "Al is here." And then just a couple seconds later, he said, "At Lori's." Was this shocking to you?
Yes.
And what did you respond back? Did you say, "Really, I wonder why he never called me back"?
Yes.
And then we see that you wrote at 7:36 and 28 seconds, "They are planning something." Why did you write that?
Because Alex not answering his phone the whole day and me calling him and texting him, not knowing where he's at. Nobody in my family said they heard from him or knew where he was. All that is very suspicious to me. And then Alex being at Lori's house that morning felt like something was really off.
And that's also what Charles said in this email. they are up to something, right? And they were.
So when you told Charles they're planning something, Charles responded back, absolutely. Did you then let him know that you were supposed to spend the night at Alex's house? She probably blocked that.
Yes.
Did Charles respond to you, what you do is up to you?
Yes.
So were you kind of upset at your brother for telling you you could stay with him and then ghosting you, ignoring you?
Yes.
Were you upset at him for being at Lori's house when Charles was going there just to pick up JJ?
Yes.
Did you then text him, I'm going to put the pressure on to have him come get me right now, see what he says?
Yes.
Did you in fact text your brother?
Yes.
Did he respond back?
No.
As we're going along here,
Now think about what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with 3 siblings. Adam is in town. He's not normally in town. Adam's in town. Alex is in town. Laurie's in town, right? And Alex knows Adam is looking for him. And then you have kind of a situation where Alex and Laurie are together and Charles is killed. Meanwhile, Adam is there the whole time kind of saying, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? And they know that Adam is kind of a friend of Charles. And just think about this part. And they go ahead with this whole thing anyway. Like they don't like try and get Charles in a, I don't know how to put it, in a moment where no one else should be aware. They go after him, even though their other brother is sort of aware of what's going on with Charles and how Charles is feeling. That is pretty brazen. But another word for that is stupid, right? I mean, basically, Adam is in the neighborhood. Adam could have come over any time. I suppose they would have expected him not to, because him and Laurie were sort of holding this grudge. They were sort of not talking to each other. But nevertheless, Adam is trying to find where Alex is, right? And meanwhile, Alex kind of commits this crime anyway. It's pretty crazy.
here we see that each of these are being read sort of in this short period of time, these couple minutes that Charles is here as he's driving in. After you texted Charles about putting the pressure on to have him come get me right now, did you then say okay to Charles?
Yes.
And then we see again that at 7:49:34 a.m., you texted Charles, me and Zach are going to the Stake Center tonight at 8 to play basketball. Holmes is always there, either playing ball or interviewing people. I will try to catch him and have a conversation with my old friend.
Yes.
What was that about?
That was just part of the plan that Charles initially came up with to somehow get in front of the stake president. That night, he's the stake president. He interviews people for Temple Recommends and also plays basketball afterwards. So that was just a thought of maybe this could be something that we could do to help with that situation.
Okay. Now, up until 7:37 and 7.
Pay attention to this 7:37, because that's when I think that was possibly Charles's time of death, because it's the last proof of life from his phone, right?
You had been interacting with Charles, right? You would respond and you were getting some text messages back from him.
Yes.
We see after 7:37 where he texts you, what you do is up to you, that he didn't respond back to any of your other comments, right?
Right.
So when you sent him at 7:37 and 29 seconds that you're going to put the pressure on him, you meant Al,
Yes, Alex.
to come get you, Charles didn't respond to that?
No.
And in fact, it shows that that message was read at 12:13
12:13.
versus the earlier messages that were read sort of
Who do you
right
think
in
read
time.
that message
Is
at
that
12:13?
And when you told Charles that you and Zach were going to go to the stake center to play basketball and see if you could find Holmes, did you get a response from Charles?
No.
And again, we see that that was read at 12:13, correct?
Yes.
Did you go talk with Holmes that night?
I went to go play basketball, but he wasn't there.
Was it just you and Zach?
Yes.
During the day of July 11th, at any time, did you learn that Charles Vallow had been shot?
No.
So Lori did not call you and tell you that Charles had been shot?
No.
Alex didn't call you to tell you that he'd shot your brother-in-law?
No.
Anyone in your family talked to you about it?
Nope.
How about the next day, Friday, July 11th? Did Lori tell you Charles had been shot?
No.
Alex contact you to tell you that he'd shot Charles?
No.
Anyone in your family talk to you about that?
No.
How do you think they found out?
Decide to go visit a friend in Tucson on Saturday the 13th now?
Yes.
What were you going down there for?
Going to see my friend Eric.
And did anyone come with you?
Yes, Zach did, my son.
So just think about this. I mean, in a way, you could say Lori not contacting him, when she hadn't spoken to him for years, is sort of okay. You'd think the death of someone would break through that, but Alex not saying anything, would be kind of even bigger. I suppose you could argue, well, if the police were talking to him, maybe he had to deal with that first, but it does make you wonder who were Lori and Alex talking to after Charles's death, because it definitely wasn't Adam, and Adam was in town, so why not call him? It's both of their brother, right?
Okay. When you went down there, did you talk with Eric about what's going on?
Yeah, I just thought it was really fishy that I heard from Charles. I didn't know if he took JJ and just was having one-on-one time with JJ. I didn't know if Lori and him were getting back together and Lori told him not to talk to me. Or my mind was spinning. Like I had no clue what was going on.
Had you talked to any of your family about it? Were you still keeping that intervention thing secret from them at that point?
No, at that point, but I think nobody had heard from. I asked if anybody had heard from Alex, and nobody said that they heard from Alex in my family. But at that point, I was there spending time with my son Zach, also to help Charles with what he wanted to try to get an intervention with Lori, and also to see my friend Eric, because I live in Wichita, so I was trying to do 3 things at one time on my short visit.
So on the 11th or 12th, though, were you still keeping that sort of secret that you and Charles had been wanting to do an intervention on Lori?
Yes.
You weren't telling your family, like, I don't know why we're not doing this.
Charles asked me not to tell anybody.
And was that actually sort of a message you guys had talked about of who in your family might be, might prevent any type of intervention?
Yes.
And who in your family
This
were you
is quite
guys
interesting.
concerned with if they learned about the intervention?
Who might
try to
prevent
stop it?
the intervention?
Mom and Dad, Summer.
And Alex.
Alex? too?
Alex, yes.
So even though you're here and you're seeing your family and you're seeing your son, you don't want to tell them a lot about Charles because you're trying to still keep that quiet in case he does want to go forward with it.
Exactly, yes.
So you're in Tucson and you start talking to your friend about Charles.
Yes.
Do you learn at some point that Charles has been killed?
Yes. I was talking with Eric saying it just, something doesn't feel right. I haven't heard from Charles, and usually he would text me or send me a message or something. And then Eric asked me, he goes, well, what's his last name? And I said, Vallow. And he was on his computer and he just Googled Charles Vallow. And he said it popped up that he's been killed by his brother-in-law.
So you learn this. What is going through your mind now?
Just everything, chaos. I had a knot in my stomach. Just probably one of the worst feelings I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah, well, if you'll permit me, I know that feeling, unfortunately, as well. It is a little bit different. Funnily enough, it's also a guy called Alex, but I remember it was a very early on a Monday morning, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was logging into my computer, and then I just looked at some of the news headlines, and I saw something about a cyclist being killed in Johannesburg, and I clicked on the story, and the more I read, the more I was like, I hope this is not somebody I know, because I know someone who lives there. So I literally found out about my best friend's death on the news, and must say it was devastating. It was devastating, sort of finding it out that way, and then having found it out, being so sort of utterly alone in that sort of moment, and you sort of feel like you really want to talk to people. And because it was 4 o'clock in the morning, I didn't want to call his wife right then, but I felt like I really needed to talk to somebody, and then I ultimately did. But it is a horrible, horrible feeling, finding out someone so close to you has died in such an impersonal way. Really horrible feeling.
Obviously, you had been concerned that something was being planned when you told Charles that on the morning of the 11th, right? But
Well,
not that.
not that, but yeah, it felt like something was off, that why Alex would be at Lori's house that morning.
Did you know your brother Alex to carry guns with him?
Yes.
Did he regularly go shooting with guns?
Yes.
Prior to Charles being shot and killed, did you ever tell Lori that you were going to be trying to do this intervention with her?
No.
Prior to Charles being shot, did you ever tell Alex, hey, I'm going to stay with you, but we're trying to do an intervention with Lori?
No.
What about your parents? Did you ever tell them you were going to try to do an intervention?
No.
Your sister Summer?
No.
So if your sister told detectives a couple hours after Charles was shot that she was confronting Charles about you and Charles talking and texting, it wasn't something that you told her about?
No.
You told us that you are LDS. Have you ever taught Sunday school?
Yes.
Can you tell us about the story of Nephi?
Nephi?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nephi was a prophet in the Book of Mormon. It's the first chapter. He was a prophet, very humble and faithful servant of the Lord. Ironically enough, his brothers tried to kill him at one point. But he actually ended up going to Jerusalem to get these plates back, and he was run off, came back, and then went back again because the Lord asked him to. And when he did, the King Laban, who was actually a wicked king, was laying on the ground drunk in front of him. And Nephi was told to kill Laban.
Who was he told by?
The spirit, or God.
That's quite a kind of useful pretext. It's the first book, I think, first chapter in Mormon. And so you've literally got God telling someone, hey, kill that guy. And then what's the difference between, okay, well, that you should do that. Yes, do it. Because God said I must do it. Well, what's the difference between that and, oh, I just heard God say, you must kill that person. What's the difference?
So God was using a Holy Spirit to tell him to kill Laban, and
Yes.
did he?
Yes, he did.
Was that something he anguished over?
Yes.
But ultimately, it was a justified killing.
Yes.
So think about those words. Is it a justified killing? He says yes. Well, I mean, the king was drunk. Should you kill someone because they're drunk? I don't know much about the king, but is the killing of Charles justified? Right? If you think about it, why was Charles killed? Well, because he was possessed with some spirit. Was he possessed by some spirit? Well, because somebody says so. Well, someone who stands to benefit from his death. So, but was he actually possessed by an evil spirit? By the same token, you could say, was Laurie possessed by an evil spirit? Was anybody possessed by an evil spirit? Right?
So was the concept that it was better for Nephi to kill this one evil man and sort of benefit the nation and his descendants?
Yes.
Oh, Sybil, that must have been pretty hard, hey? Especially in that sort of very public in that very public setting. Did you go home after you found out?
Were you aware that that your sister had told people that Charles was possessed by evil spirits?
Yes.
Were you aware that your sister had told people that your brother-in-law Charles was dark?
Objection. Calls for hearsay.
So that's another objection from Laurie. The first one was for the texts, something she didn't like about that. She doesn't like it being acknowledged that they called Charles dark, which I find quite interesting. Objection hearsay. Is it objection because it's not true, or is it an objection because it's true and damaging? Just go back a second.
Your brother-in-law Charles was dark.
Objection. Calls for hearsay.
It's whether or not he was aware of it.
Whether or
Yes
not
or
he's
no?
aware, he can answer yes or no.
Yes.
When you and Charles were talking about this intervention, were you trying to help your sister come back to mainstream LDS beliefs?
Yes.
So it wasn't just Charles, but also her.
Yes.
You told us that your friend had Googled and learned that Charles was killed. Did you know at that time it was by your brother Alex?
That's what the article said. So yes, he told me that.
What did you do after you learned that?
Freaked out for a little bit, cried, didn't know what to do, thought my world was coming apart. Then I got angry a little bit, and then called first thing I did, I called Kay, who's Charles's sister, and asked her, because she's the only one that I felt safe calling after knowing my family was involved in this or thinking of this, that I asked her if she knew that Charles was dead, and she said she just learned of it too.
Did you learn from your friend when, because it's now the 13th when you learned this, right?
Yes.
Did you learn when that happened?
Yes, I did.
So you knew on that Saturday, the 13th, that
Now it's interesting that he says Kay was the only one he felt safe calling. If Alex had shot Charles, perhaps he was afraid that he could be next because they were working on this intervention thing together, right? And one does wonder if he had just wandered into the scene looking for Charles, what could have happened to him? Remember, Alex is dead today. Charles is dead today. The children are dead today. Tammy's, Chad's wife, dead today. So I think there's a fair chance he could have been dead if he was more involved at the wrong time, right?
Charles had been killed that morning
Yes.
of July 11th.
Yes.
Did you ever come back to Phoenix and confront anyone in your family about this or talk to them about it?
Yes. After I talked to Kay, then I called my mom and asked her if she knew that Charles was dead. And she said yes. And I said, what's going on? And she said, you tell me what's going on. And at that point, I thought that was bizarre that she would say that. So I said, well, we need to sit down and talk. And she said, yes, we do. And so me and Zach got in the car and drove back to Phoenix.
Did you go to your mom's house?
Yes, I did.
That's the right answer.
Did that conversation go well?
No.
Did this create a break in your relationship with your mom?
Yes.
Did you stick up for Charles?
Yes.
Did sticking up for Charles create issues between you and most of your family?
Yes.
Did you continue to stick up for Charles even with that happening?
Yes.
After you had that argument with your mom, what did you do?
Me and Zach left her house and we were staying at Summer's house, my sister, who was away on vacation. And we were staying at her house and we went back to her house. We were watching her dog.
You were supposed to leave the next morning, Sunday, to go back to Wichita. Did you return back home?
Yes, we did.
Did your son go with you this time?
Yes, he did.
After this whole incident happened, did you not talk with your family for a long time?
Yes.
Did it cause a lot of friction in your family?
Yes.
Have you started to try to talk with your family some?
Yes.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Cross?
Mr. Cox, how long has it been since we've seen each other in person?
Don't know.
When was the last time you saw me?
I don't recall.
So, has it been a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 6
Something like
years,
that.
7 years, 8 years?
Something.
Okay. So, you have no idea.
Nope.
You have no idea when the last time you saw me in person.
I don't know the year or how many years it's been.
Okay. So, did you see me at Colby's wedding in January 2018?
No, I was not there.
You didn't come to Colby's wedding.
No, I did not.
So, did you see me sometime that year at my house
Possibly.
where Colby got married? That house.
I did see you at that house. Yes.
At least one time.
Yes.
So possibly in 2018.
Yes.
And when was the last time we had any communications?
The last time I remember our communications was you and I were speaking in the kitchen when the family was over.
Okay, so you think that was that time in 2018?
I think so.
Okay. And were we eating my green chili chicken enchiladas?
Do not remember that.
You do not remember that?
Nope.
Is that what I made every time we had a family get together, which was like 10 times a year?
I don't remember that.
Okay. And when was the last time that we had a phone call or text message?
I have no idea.
Could it possibly be around that exact same time?
Possibly.
Okay. So that was possibly in early 2018?
Yes.
Okay. Who do you think initiated the final communication in our relationship?
Who concluded it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So right now it's 2025, is that correct?
Yes.
And so we haven't spoken in about 8 years. Would that be correct?
Probably 7 or 8 years.
Okay. So would you say up until that point that how often would we communicate before that?
Before what?
Before 2018?
Probably on a regular basis. Once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month.
Like a call or a text message?
Yes.
Just keeping in touch?
Yes.
You know of us living in Hawaii and you were living in Kansas at the time?
Yes.
And in your career, you lived in lots of different places. Is that correct?
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Dallas,
Yes.
New York,
Yes.
Wichita,
Yes.
Sacramento.
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
Others.
And I was in Texas,
Yes.
Arizona,
Yes.
Hawaii.
Yes.
So would you say that we were not physically close during the past 20 years?
Yes, I would say that.
So our communication would be solely family get-togethers, occasional text messages. Is that correct?
And phone calls, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Cox, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with my brother Alex Cox to murder my husband Charles Vallow?
Repeat that again.
Okay. Did you see with your eyes or hear with your ears or personally witness me conspire with my brother Alex Cox to murder my husband Charles Vallow?
No.
Thank you. No more questions.
Redirect?
What did you think of the cross? She tried to keep it clean. Remember, this is a brother that she's kind of resented for quite a long time. So I think she did quite well under the circumstances. I was kind of expecting some fireworks and some snide remarks. There wasn't really any of that. In fact, there was a little bit of shared humor at one point. I think she did quite well, although it was quite a muted response. Do you agree? I do think the recross was done really well. I'm not sure what they call it. Is it re-examination?
Have you talked to your sister since Charles was shot and killed?
No.
So since that happened, you cut off all communications with her?
Yes.
Prior to that, you were being asked about 2018 being at Lori and Charles's house. Was that the time where Lori told you she was becoming a celestial being?
Yes.
And the time where she was telling you other ideas that were not in line with the LDS faith?
Yes.
After you had heard those statements by your sister, you told us that she had asked you if you thought she was crazy, right?
Yes.
And you had responded back how?
I don't know if you're crazy, but what you're telling me is not true.
After you told her that her beliefs were not true, did that sort of end your talking with her?
Yes.
So do you notice so far Laurie's not sort of acknowledging her own crazy beliefs? She's not really admitting that to the jury. She's sort of avoiding it. She's skirting it. Now, I wonder whether she will testify, whether she'll go on the stand and acknowledge them there. What do you guys think?
You were asked if you personally saw, heard your sister Lori
Probably is
conspire to
redirect.
kill Charles. Were you there that morning?
No.
Were you the person who was supposed to, though, be with Alex on the 10th into the morning of the 11th? You spent the night with him?
If I would have spent the night with him, yes.
So that stood out to you because you had made plans with your brother, right?
Yes.
And instead, you learned he was at Lori's house.
Yes.
You told us that you thought it was odd that your brother would be over at your sister's house at 7:30 in the morning.
Yes.
And you were aware that your brother had guns.
Yes.
Charles was going there to pick up JJ, right?
Yes.
And so did it seem odd to you that your brother would bring a gun that was loaded with extra magazines that was not safe to your sister's house where JJ was?
Objection, out of scope. This is not just
Goes to the
a
conspiracy.
redirect. This is not just a redirect.
Hey, you didn't ask for argument.
To judge, hey,
Objections overruled.
What's the question?
Sure. Did it stand out to you that your brother, who knew JJ, would bring a loaded gun and extra ammunition to the house where JJ was running around?
Well,
It
I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
You're saying afterwards?
Yeah, you learned afterwards your brother killed him, right?
Yes.
So just to give Laurie a little bit of credit, she was actually right. And you'll see at the end of this examination, the judge will say, you know what, we did actually go beyond the scope of the redirect. So you can redirect if you want to, or you can cross based on that additional information. So to Laurie's credit, it was actually one of the few legitimate objections she made, but it was legitimate.
We're talking about this conspiracy and things that are going on. Did that seem odd to you that your brother would bring a loaded gun and extra ammunition in this unsafe way to a house where your...
Remember, Alex basically was supposed to just go. Alex was staying elsewhere, and he went to Laurie's. Basically, it would be interesting to know exactly when he got there, but basically that night going into the next morning, right? Why would you take a loaded gun with you? Like if you just go and visit someone, do you take a gun with you? It's to family members. You know, why? you know, if you think of it in that sense, it is quite strange.
You know, sister's son, JJ, lived.
Yeah, it seemed extreme.
When you were talking to your family after this happened, did you actually tell them that you believed that Lori and Alex had conspired to kill Charles?
Yes.
Why would?
Now, that is to me, again, you know, it's like he believes that Lori and Alex conspired to kill Charles, but doesn't tell the police that. Why not? And you might say, well, because it's a family member, and so ... Maybe that's what kept him from doing that. But again, like if you just think about what's happened here, remaining silent on Charles's death, because for quite a few months, Lori and Alex got away with it. And then you had Tylee's death, JJ's death. Didn't they kind of join the dots there as well, where they're thinking, well, something's happened to Tylee? Or is the family so fragmented that they, excuse me, that they just don't care in a way? And then, of course, Tammy Daybell does as well. You know, if action had been taken, I'm just saying that this is quite a cautionary tale in, you know, if you aren't hands-on, if you aren't thinking critically, if you're not responding to what's happening in your immediate environment with a sibling, then look how much worse things can become, and look how much worse things did become. Because for Lori, she must be thinking, Adam knew what was going on and he's saying nothing. So if something happens to Tylee, is anyone going to say anything? And on and on and on.
Was that?
Because Lori had told people that Charles was no longer living, that some guy named Ned was inside of his body, that there was a zombie living inside of him. And Alex didn't respond to any of my text messages when I was supposed to be with him. And he was at that house that morning. Lori talking crazy about how she's a translated being. All these things all added up into that moment and that morning. Once I found out on Saturday that Charles was shot and killed, no doubt in my mind that they killed him. That's a feeling that I got.
And you told your family that?
Yes.
No other questions?
Good
The
way
last
to
line of
stop,
questioning from the
to end off on.
possession of the gun on, I think the defendant's right, was technically beyond the scope of her cross. So based on that, I'll allow the defendant, if she...
Did you hear what the judge said? I think the defendant was technically right. So he's being fair, right?
She wants to recross on those issues. If she elects to, may do so now.
Quite a strange stretch from him. Maybe just a bit stressed. So Lori decides not to
All right. Are there any questions?
question. The jury
from
don't
member
either.
Lori? Not seeing any, sir. You can step
That's really all I wanted to share with you guys, but I guess we can deal with another witness who was part of the whole preparing a people thing. Not a family
I make a
member.
banner.
Let's go to this witness.
It was right before COVID, so 20.
You're going to walk around the court reporter here and have a seat just to my left.
I just do think it is worrying that you've got a family member basically going, there was no doubt in my mind that they killed him, and then they go on to commit 3 more murders, right? It's pretty troubling.
Thank you. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Serena Sharp.
I'm going to have you pull in a little or move the mic down a little closer to you so we can hear you.
Ah,
Thank you. How old are you, Serena?
How old am I? 51.
And where are you living currently? What state, what city?
Arizona, Queen Creek.
And where did you live back in 2019, 2018?
Connecticut.
Okay. When did you move to Arizona?
It was right before COVID, so 2019.
Do you recall, I know we don't have a lot of weather here, but summer, winter, fall?
Definitely summer. It was so hot. I think it was end of July, August, but we closed on our house September.
Are you a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes.
Were you raised in this church?
Yes.
Do you consider yourself a spiritual person?
Yes.
She kind of looks like an angel.
I want to talk to you about a group, Preparing the People. Have you ever attended any of their events?
Yes. Two.
Can you tell us what those are?
They were conferences that helped people prepare physically and spiritually for emergency preparedness and the second coming.
Also known as a prepper, right?
And you said you attended a couple of those conferences?
Yes.
Yeah, as well,
Are they
Pauline.
located
Good point.
sort of around the country?
Yes.
Did you ever attend one of those conferences here in Arizona?
I did.
Do you recall when that was?
It was November of 2018.
When you decided to come to this conference in November of 2018, did you know anyone here?
Two people, one just from over the phone conversations, Melanie Gibb and Jason Mao.
So did you have any place to stay when you came here? What was your thoughts as you're coming in for this conference?
Both of them invited me to stay at their homes.
And what was your plan? Who did you think you were going to stay with?
I thought I was going to stay with Melanie Gibb because she offered to pick me up at the airport as well, so that I didn't need to rent a car.
Did you know Arizona well?
Not at all. No.
So were you picked up by Melanie Gibb?
Yes.
And did you stay at her house?
No.
Where did you stay?
After she picked me up, she said that instead of her house, because her whole family was home and it was busy and chaotic, we were going to stay at her friend's house, whose family was gone for the weekend and had a bunch of people for the conference staying there.
Who was that?
That was Lori.
Did you know her last name, or did you learn it?
I learned it when I got there. I had never heard or had met her before.
What was her last name?
Vallow?
Okay. So you told us you didn't know Lori Vallow prior to just coming to stay at her house.
No.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you point her out and tell us what she's wearing?
She's right there with glasses on and blonde hair and a black jacket.
Your Honor, may the record reflect. the
Is she
witnesses
chewing
identified
gum?
the defendant.
Good show.
Do you recall who else was staying at Lori's house that weekend?
There was a lot of people, and I was meeting everybody for the first time, so I don't recall everybody, but I do know Lori was there and Melanie was there.
Did you ever meet Chad Daybell?
Yes, he was there as well.
Was that the first time you met him?
Yes.
So during this event, are you going between Lori's home and to a location where the conference is at?
Correct.
Okay. And did you ever talk with Chad Daybell outside of, well, did you ever talk with him that weekend?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever talk with him after that November 2018 conference here in Arizona?
Yes.
When else did you see or talk with him?
I saw him at another Preparing a People conference in February.
So that's 2019 now,
Yes,
after the November one.
correct.
Where was that one?
That was in Idaho.
And did you ever contemplate moving to Idaho?
Yes.
Did you ever meet with him in Idaho well, did you learn he lived there?
Yeah. When did I learn?
Did you learn that he lived in Idaho?
Yes.
And did you ever, in fact, meet with him in Idaho to kind of talk about possibly moving there?
Yes, I was actually house hunting with a realtor and in the city that he lived. So we connected for a few minutes.
What city was that?
Rexburg?
Did you know if Chad was married at that time?
Yes.
When you were staying at Lori's house in Phoenix in November of 2018, did you understand her to be married?
Yes.
At that time, did you have any idea that Lori and Chad were having an affair?
No idea.
After you met Lori at this and stayed at her house, did you have any more conversations with her, texts or phone calls?
Yes.
Were you ever invited back out to Arizona?
Yes.
When was that?
That was in March of 2019 for a girls' weekend.
What was the girls' weekend going to be?
It was a few girls coming together for a girls' weekend. So
Whose house, where was it going to be?
that was at Zulema's house. And I think from my memory, she's the one who invited me and
I think Sulema
started that
married
girls' weekend
Alex,
idea.
right?
Had you met Zulema before?
Yes.
Where had you met her?
I met, it's vague, but I think I met her at the first Preparing a People conference I came to, which was the November 2018 here in Arizona.
And had you talked with her as well between that November time and when you came out in March?
Yes.
Who else was part of this girls' weekend that you recall?
It was Lori and Melanie Gibb, Zulema, Christina, Nicole, and myself. I think that's it.
Now, were all of you women members of the LDS Church?
Yes.
During this time, did Lori ever tell you things about her beliefs that seemed to go against what you understood or what you were taught through the LDS Church?
Yes.
Did Lori ever tell you that she did not need to repent?
Yes, she did.
What does repenting mean?
Repenting means turning to God and confessing our sins and repairing our relationship with Him so that
Kind of like saying you're sorry.
He can take on our sins for us and we can become better people through Him and seek His forgiveness.
Do you recall what Lori told you about not needing to repent anymore?
What I remember is she's had a couple of verses in the Bible that she pulled out and read and then said, I believe something to the effect of, I believe we don't need to repent anymore.
Did that stand out to you?
Oh, yes.
Was that
That was
concerning
shocking.
to you?
Oh, yes.
Pardon?
Was that concerning to you?
Very.
I think you just said you were shocked by it.
Yes.
It was that against your religion.
Correct.
Uh-oh,
she
red
ever
flag.
express to you and this group that all of you might not need to repent?
I don't remember the specifics of it. If she was trying to apply that to us or just to her, I don't remember.
Just to her.
I just remember she said we, or generally, I don't remember the specific words she used, but that there was not a need for repentance anymore.
Oh, okay.
Do you recall, have you been interviewed by the police a couple different times?
Yes.
Do you recall being interviewed in April of 2021?
Was that was the Chandler Police
At the
Department?
police department instead of at your home? Okay. Do you recall saying to the detectives then that
I mean, that's really
she
nice
said,
to say,
"You
you don't need to
repent
repent. I
anymore.
guess I
We've
can
come
do
to that
anything. I mean, I don't
stage."
need to, I can do whatever I
And then
want
you
and
were
I don't
asked
need
when she
to
said we, was she talking about like her,
be held
Chad, or all
accountable
you
for it.
guys? And you said she was trying to get all of us to believe that.
Mm.
You recall saying that?
I don't recall saying that, but if that's in the transcripts, that was much closer to the time when it was said. It's been a few years. I don't remember exactly what was said anymore.
It's so ironic, this situation. Here, Laurie is the defendant in a murder trial and she's acting as her own lawyer. Is she repenting now? You know, is she ever going to repent? Does she feel like that is like something that she can hold true for the rest of her life? I don't need to repent.
So your memory back then would have been better than now.
For sure.
So if you had told the police back then that she was trying to, in fact, tell everyone that you could follow along with this belief of not repenting, you would have been truthful to the police back then.
Of course, yes.
Do you recall Lori ever talking to you about people having dark and light levels assigned to them?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall Lori ever talking about not needing to repent because she was translated?
I don't remember her using that specific word, but I don't know.
What do you recall her saying with regards to that?
I remember her talking about changing physically and spiritually. Those are the two I remember.
And by changing physically, what do you recall of that?
Just being filled with more light and knowledge so that we could become closer to God.
So is that sort of the same as when we're talking about being translated?
Yes.
Okay.
I just don't remember her saying that specific word.
Okay. So the
Yeah, I just want to respond to what Pauline's saying here. Because remember early on we were talking about who was the puppet master here? Who was actually pulling the strings? Was it Laurie or Chad? Was it Chad or Laurie? Look at where Laurie is now. She's representing herself in court. Is there any doubt who the puppet master is here?
concept was the same, whether or not she said that word, you don't recall now.
Correct.
Did Lori ever talk to you, either that weekend or prior to that, about casting?
Yes.
Do you recall if Lori was the person who brought up casting?
I believe she was, from my memory.
Do you recall if she talked to you about casting on more than one occasion?
Yes.
Now, how many times do you recall that she had brought this up?
I don't know how many times.
It was more than once?
Yes, it was more than once.
Did she ever bring it up while you were talking or Zoom talking like we used to do in the pandemic?
I never Zoom called with her. I don't.
phone call?
Phone calls? Yes.
So at least one phone call you recall
Mhm.
that she brought up casting?
But I remember one phone call. There might have been others. I just don't remember.
What, so was that phone call, to the best of your memory, before this girls' weekend in March of 2019?
From my memory, I think it was after, but
So then let's talk about the weekend of March, the girls' weekend in March of 2019.
okay.
Did Lori bring up casting there?
Yes, she did.
And the other time when Lori had talked about casting, whether it was before or after, was this to sort of cleanse society, sort of a generic, I don't want to say generic, but to try to cleanse evil from an area or a population, not a specific person?
Yes, it was like generally a cleanse or casting out evil.
Have you on your own sort of prayed to get rid of evil?
Yes, I have.
Is that sort of a personal casting that you've done,
Uh,
if we want to term it that way?
yeah, I wouldn't term it that way, but yes.
Okay. Would you just term it as you're praying for the better of the world?
Praying and or casting out evil. Yes, in the name of Jesus Christ.
But you said you had never used casting as a term before.
No.
So Lori was the one using this word casting.
I don't recall her using that word. I think she was also saying casting out from my memory.
So casting out.
Mhm.
When you met up on this girls'
I'm
weekend,
sorry, was the last answer a yes?
this was the first, I guess, Lori was the one using the term casting out.
Yes.
On this March girls' weekend trip, do you recall having Lori ask everyone to help cast out as to a specific person?
Yes.
Can you tell us who that was?
It was her husband, Charles.
Had you ever met Charles before?
Vague memory, but it was a quick, I think, meet as I was leaving Arizona for the Preparing a People conference in November. I was going to the airport and I think he was coming in at the same time. Again, it was pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
But I think that's when we met very briefly.
Well, Phoenix is a
He
big
was kinda
airport.
coming
I've
home
been
and
there.
you were leaving.
It's
Yes.
quite big.
Um,
It is quite chaotic.
Did this seem unusual to you to do this, to be asked to cast out as to a specific person?
Yes. But not. Did you say unusual?
Did it stand out to you, her asking you to cast out as to her husband?
Yes, it stood out
Basically,
to
her
me.
ex-husband is demon possessed. Okay.
During this weekend, did Lori talk to you about her husband, Charles Vallow, being possessed?
Yes, she did.
What do you recall about her talking about her husband being possessed?
I recall that she spoke about her husband being possessed by an evil spirit, and she named the evil spirit.
Do you recall what the name was?
Yes,
What was it?
it was Ned.
N-E-D? Ned?
N-E-D.
When you heard this,
Sounds pretty harmless.
did that stand out to you as well?
Very much, yes. Very unusual.
Are you someone who questions things? Or
Yeah.
do you just go with the flow?
I question things.
So you're hearing these things from Lori that are standing out to you, some of them very against your religious beliefs. Are you starting to ask about some of these things?
Yes. I remember I was asking a lot of questions about the repentance thing she brought up. And I remember asking and talking to some of the other ladies about the casting out in a group setting before or stuff like that.
Do you recall Lori Vallow telling you that her husband Charles was no longer Charles, that he was now this possessed person?
Yes.
When Lori was talking to you about Ned, was she explaining that this evil spirit was now in the body of her husband?
I don't know if she used those exact terms, but that was the impression I got. Yes.
So the word she used expressed to you that idea that this evil spirit Ned was now in her husband's body.
Yes.
So did you ever hear Lori use the term zombie?
I did.
Is that another thing that kind of stuck out to you?
Very much.
Not typical LDS
In
parlance, I
listening
guess.
to Lori, did zombie sort of did you understand that to mean someone whose body was possessed by an evil spirit?
Well, prior to this, I thought zombie was like a Hollywood
Yeah.
thing,
Well
but she
said.
tried to relate the zombie and correlate that to the evil spirit that was inside of somebody,
She'd
like her
appropriated
husband. Yes.
the idea for her own use.
Did you ever start to question Lori about zombies and these evil spirits inhabiting her husband's body? Did you try to question her about that?
I don't recall specifically.
When you started questioning her, at least about repenting that you recall, did you see a difference in how you were treated?
Soon after that girls' weekend, yes.
So let's talk about the group casting. What happened? What did you guys do for this group casting for her husband, Charles?
All the ladies came together and we were all in the same room just talking. And I remember coming together. I don't remember if we were standing or sitting, but I remember Lori started and asked for this help for her husband because she needed to cast out this evil spirit. And she asked to just go around the room and each of us take turns casting out to see if we could get rid of this evil spirit within him.
Ned. And this was the first time you'd ever had anyone ask you to be part of some group to cast out?
Yes.
And a group to cast out an evil spirit as to a specific person?
I've never done that in a group setting before. Never even heard of that before.
After this weekend, let me ask you, how many days do you recall that you were here?
For which?
That March?
That March?
Yeah.
Just a couple days. I don't recall how many. Just a couple days, though.
Okay. So
like a weekend, maybe?
Just the weekend type of thing.
Approximately.
During that time, do you recall just the one evening where Lori had asked you and the other women to cast out this evil spirit and her husband? Was there just one incident that weekend that you recall?
One incident. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Over the March Girls Weekend, was there just the one time where Lori asked the group to cast out Ned from her husband?
From my memory, yes, I think so.
Had you heard on, though, more than one occasion, Lori saying that her husband was possessed?
More than one occasion on that weekend, or like,
Sure. Or either that weekend, or had you previously heard that?
I don't recall previously hearing that. And I don't remember hearing it after how many times she said that.
Was it discussed throughout the weekend?
I believe so.
Let's go ahead and recess for lunch.
Okay, so there's a recess for lunch, and we're gonna jump to the other side of that recess. I'm not going to continue. I don't know if there's any more of that testimony. We're going to deal with the cross coming from Lori, right?
All right, let's bring the jury.
She came with Alex, her brother, and basically I said hi, and not much more than that. She sat on the other side of the restaurant, opposite of me. So, and not much contact there, but
Okay. And then what was the other contact you had with her?
I can't remember how it was organized.
So we're going to do about another minute with the prosecutor, and then he will deal with Lori's cross, which should be quite interesting.
Perhaps at that lunch, Lori invited the women over to her house to just talk. And she had just lost her husband. And I don't know if I was included by accident or how that happened. I don't remember exactly, but I did go over to her house that night because here's somebody that I knew, and she had just lost her husband, which that's a big deal. And
She was having a
I
pool
wanted
party.
to
right?
find out how she was doing and what was going on.
Did you know anything at that time about the loss of her husband? Like what had happened?
I had heard vague things, but I had been across the country, so I didn't know any particulars.
Do you recall who was at the house that night?
Multiple women, but I actually don't remember who was there. I think Melanie Gibb was there, and then a few other ladies, but I actually don't remember who.
And do you recall, was that still that same time frame of like either the end of July or the beginning of August?
Yes.
Can you describe for us Lori's demeanor at this meeting, this gathering at her house?
I would assume, like in my estimation, it was more like stoic. I didn't see any like mourning or crying.
After that contact with Lori, did you ever see her again?
No,
Did you know that she had moved out of state?
no, not till long after she already had.
Did you know that she had married Chad Daybell?
Nope.
So basically, after paying your condolences, that was sort of the end of your contact friendship with Lori Vallow?
Yes, I think there might have been a few texts after that just to check up on her and see how she was doing. She had just lost her husband again. So, and I think she was trying to figure out how to move forward, and I was concerned. So, but nothing of substance.
Was your interactions with her via text very limited?
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Just before we deal with the cross, do you guys remember this, that Lori apparently had a pool party hours after her husband's death? I don't know if that was what this lady was attending. Because look at this. Laurie was kind of like happy-go-lucky. She was kind of smiling. She's talking about how Tyler was going to go to BYU Hawaii, and it was just very, very nonchalant. That's not stoic. I don't know if we're talking about the same time period here. Anyway, just a reminder about this pool party. Okay, let's listen to Laurie cross-examining.
Ms. Sharp, did you take an oath when you came into this courtroom today?
Yes, I did.
Did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did.
Did you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I did.
The whole truth?
Yes.
Nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you who?
God.
So can we agree that this court acknowledges that your testimony here today will be accountable to God?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance of this.
Sustained.
Your Honor, they brought up the religion.
Ask for a response. It's sustained. Ask the next question.
Do you believe that your testimony here will be accountable to God?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Sharp, how many times did we meet in person?
4.
How many one-on-one conversations during those meetings do you think that we actually had? Just you and me, nobody else around, just you and me.
Maybe 2.
2 conversations in our whole lives,
Maybe
just me
3.
and you.
You said during those meetings.
During the 4 times that we saw each other in person,
Mm-hmm.
how many times did you and I have a one-on-one conversation where other people were not in the conversation? Just me and you.
I can remember 3.
Okay? And how many times did we communicate on the phone?
Do you want me to estimate? I don't remember how many times.
Sure, just an estimate.
I'm not sure how to estimate that. Multiple times?
Like more than 10 or less than 10?
Probably more than 10.
More than 20?
I don't remember.
Okay. And text messages, the same. How many times do you think that we conversed via text?
You see how Laurie presents herself as this powerful,
I
authoritative
don't know.
figure?
I'm not sure how to answer
She
that
sort of
again.
seems to bully witnesses.
Okay, so would it
Multiple times.
okay. So would it be fair to say that some of the things that you remember are from other people and not actually from me to you directly?
Perhaps.
Okay. So in the instance when you said that I mentioned to you something about zombies, I would like to know what I said to you exactly verbatim about zombies.
Well, I remember we talked about zombies in 2019 for the girls' weekend. You had
Okay.
mentioned zombies.
I mentioned zombies at that weekend out of my mouth and not someone else, but me.
Object to argumentative.
Overruled, you can ask. Why don't you rephrase that question?
Okay. So you're saying under oath that I said the word zombies at that meeting, or I'll go with that.
To the best of my recollection, it was that weekend during the girls' weekend, 2019.
And
Again, that was 6 years ago. So, like verbatim, I don't remember verbatim, but I think it was that weekend.
So it could have been that someone else was talking to you about zombies, but I was actually there also. Is that correct?
I'm going to object that the witness has answered that question and said it was her.
Laurie's trying to make the case that she never said the word zombies. Do you think
Which
Laurie
might
has
be
never
still
said the
the
word zombie
Is it
to anyone?
possible that someone else said the word zombie and not me at that meeting when we were all there with the girls?
It's possible, but I don't think it was. I think
Okay,
it
then
was
what
you.
did I say exactly about zombies? I want to know the sentence I said to you about zombies.
Hold on.
Again,
Ask questions, okay?
I
make
object to
statements.
asked and answered.
So rephrase your question.
What sentence did I say to you with the word zombie in it?
I'm going to object to asked and answered.
Technically, it has been asked and
Look
answered.
how many objections there have been so far, eh?
Again, I don't remember verbatim. That was, what, 6 years ago?
So it could be possible that it really never came out of my mouth. Is that true?
Okay, I'm going to object again to asked and answered now a third time.
Sustained.
Ms. Sharp, who are the three Nephites in the Book of Mormon?
The three Nephites? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
In 3rd Nephi 28, the three Nephites, do you know who they are?
Off the top of my head, no.
You do not know who they are.
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay. In the Bible, do you know of John the Revelator?
Yes?
Do you know of John the Revelator being translated?
I don't remember that, but
You don't remember that? What about in the Old Testament, Elijah? Was he translated?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to relevance.
What's the relevance?
I've been accused of being out of the scope of the LDS religion when this is exactly in the scope of the LDS religion.
All right, I guess to the extent you're comparing yourself to these biblical figures, I'll allow it.
was
Yes,
Elijah
the volume is
translated?
so low.
Yes,
It's
I believe
crazy.
so.
Okay. But you don't know that John the Revelator was translated as well?
I can't remember.
And then the three Nephites in the Book of Mormon, they're translated as well?
No, there were three. You asked me their names. I don't remember their
I
names.
wasn't asking their names. I said, do you know who they are? As in, are you aware of them? I'm sorry. I'll be more specific. Are you aware of the three Nephites in the Book of Mormon?
Yes,
That they were translated?
yes.
So is it fair to say that that isn't uncommon in the Christian belief system to believe in people being translated?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question for all of Christianity.
Okay. Are you a Christian that believes in the Bible?
Yes?
Object, Your Honor, to relevance.
Well, I hope Laurie's not making the case that translations are quite common and so her being translated not so strange. I don't know if that's what she's playing at.
I'll allow it briefly, but hurry up and make your point.
Yes, I believe in the Bible, of course.
And Elijah in the Bible is translated, right?
Yes,
And you believe in that, right?
yes,
And you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that correct?
correct,
So that would not be out of the scope of what you believe. That's all I'm asking.
correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you. So when we were having this girls' weekend, what else did we do besides one prayer?
I remember going out to lunch, and we went to the temple, and we did service projects.
So we had a typical fun girls' weekend
Yes.
with 5 minutes of a prayer.
I don't remember how long that prayer was.
But basically, out of the 72 hours that we got together, 5 minutes of it we spent actually praying.
Again, I don't remember how long the prayer was, but that was not, from my perspective, the focus or majority of our time spent.
Okay. How long would you say that prayer was? 10 minutes? Longer?
I don't recall.
Okay. But a tiny portion of our whole fun weekend, right?
It was a small portion, yes.
Okay. How many communications have you had over the past 5 years with Christina Atwood?
Many?
Like how many?
Again, I'm not sure how to estimate that.
Daily, weekly, monthly?
Weekly for sure, sometimes daily.
Okay. So would you say over the past 5 years that your relationship has grown with Christina?
Yes.
And are you related now?
To Christina?
Uh-huh.
No, we're not related.
Oh, as in-laws?
No.
Okay, I wondered. I didn't know.
Your Honor, again, I'm going to ask the defendant be told not to comment about the question.
She's forgetting that she's a lawyer.
The jury should disregard that comment after the answer.
She thinks she's having a conversation.
Are you still in contact with Zulema Pastenes?
Yeah, it
No,
does
I
look
haven't
like
had
she had.
contact with her in a while.
Are you in contact with Kay Woodcock?
Who? I'm sorry?
Kay Woodcock?
I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Hmm.
Are you still in contact with Nicole Earl?
Yes.
How often?
Often. Again.
Weekly or daily?
Weekly, sometimes daily.
Okay. What about Melanie Gibb? Are you still in contact with her?
No. I run into her occasionally, but
You said also in your testimony earlier that I said that I believe I don't need to repent and you were shocked. Is that correct?
yes.
What did I say to you exactly?
Again, I don't remember verbatim. That was over 6 years ago, but something to the effect of you didn't need to repent. Again, I don't know exactly, but or we didn't need to repent, whatever it was, but yes, that's what I remember.
What was the context of that conversation? Like, how would that come up? I'm like, how would that come up?
I don't remember what we were talking about or how that subject was brought to the forefront, but it was, I definitely remember that comment.
You remember that coming out of my mouth to you specifically, not from someone else, but from me to you directly.
Yes, and it was, I think, in front of all of us, but not very clear on that. I think it was to all of us.
Very
From
clear.
you.
So was I teaching a class that you attended and said something in that regard?
No,
Why would I be the one speaking?
sometimes we take turns when we speak.
Speculation as to why the defendant would be speaking?
I'll let the answer stand. She answered.
How's Laurie doing?
You said something about being uncomfortable on that weekend. Is that correct? With some of the topics?
Yes.
Why didn't you just leave if you were so uncomfortable?
I was uncomfortable with some of the topics, but I was still there with friends and I had flown across the country, so it was not easy to leave. And I didn't feel like I needed to leave at that point.
But you're a grown woman, right? You have your own mind and ideas.
Yes, of course.
So would it be fair to say that you didn't disagree so much at the time, but now looking back on it, you disagree?
I don't think that's a fair comment. No.
And would it also be fair to say that we had a good time of that weekend?
Yes, we did have a good time.
And that now you've changed your mind a little bit?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Change my mind about what?
About what made you uncomfortable?
No, I didn't change my mind.
You had mentioned something about
Yeah, this is slow going. I don't think Laurie's doing terribly well here, to be honest. To me, it's a worse cross-examination thus far. I think it's very dangerous for her to wade into the
you were interviewed by the
religious
police
stuff.
a couple of times. Is that correct?
Yes,
How many times?
twice.
Who were you interviewed by?
The first time a detective came to my home, his name was Nate Moffat, I think.
Okay. When was that about, approximately?
I want to say spring 2020.
Okay. How long was that interview?
I don't remember.
Like an hour or less, or?
And Your Honor, the witness has already answered the question. She doesn't remember.
Can you estimate how long that interview was?
Well, from my memory, I don't remember it well. I thought it was only a few minutes, but
Okay.
I think it was longer than that, perhaps.
Longer than a few minutes?
Yes.
Scott, she has
What about your
been
second interview? Who
convicted
was that with?
on 3 counts.
That
This
was
is
with 2 detectives from Idaho
another murder
Where
in
did that
another
take place?
state, which actually
in the
precedes
Chandler
those
Police
3
Station.
counts.
And how long was that interview?
That one I remember being longer, for sure. Over an hour, perhaps an hour and a half.
And what did you exactly have to contribute to the police for an hour and a half with someone that you have only met 3 times in person in your life?
Objection, speculation, relevance.
Sustained.
What were they interested in you telling them?
And I'm going to object to speculation, relevance.
Sustained.
Laurie doesn't seem to know what.
What did you tell them about me in those interviews?
He doesn't seem to know where to go with this witness. She seemed to be on a much stronger track with some of the other witnesses, including her brother.
Objection overbroad.
Oh,
Foundation.
also calls for hearsay.
Yeah.
Sustained.
Do you feel like you have something to offer here today in relation to the crime that I'm charged with?
Objection relevance goes to the final
Sustained.
opinion.
Ms. Sharp, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with my brother or anyone else to murder my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, I did not.
Thank you. No more questions.
Redirect.
Laurie's having a bit of an off day.
You were asked a lot about taking an oath. Do you take that seriously?
Yes, I do.
Is everything that you told the jury here today the truth to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my memory and knowledge, yes.
So when you don't remember something, you've been asked to try to guess. You don't remember how long something is, but you're not making up things in here.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying to go for my best memory.
It's been 6 years since you attended these meetings, correct?
Correct.
So you don't remember the number of phone calls that you and Lori had 6 years ago?
No, not at all.
You didn't keep tally marks of them through your days, put them on your nightstand so you could remember it later? How about the text messages? You tally those up for you so later on you'd be able to remember that you had 50 of them or 100 or whatever it was?
No, definitely not.
Are there things that stand out in your memory that you recall very well?
Yes, there are.
Is one of those the fact that Lori Vallow told you that you didn't need to repent or that she didn't need to repent?
Yes.
Was another one of them her telling you that her husband was possessed by an evil spirit that she named Ned?
Yes. Definitely remember that clearly.
You were asked about whether being translated was
So much more effective the
something
prosecutor
unusual to
is.
you.
It's just clearer. It's
When
just more
you
sensible,
are
right?
reading the Book of Mormon or the Bible, are there biblical figures within those books who are translated beings?
Yes.
Was it not something that you had heard people tell you that they were?
Correct.
And
I'd never heard that before.
So you read about it
Yes.
by prophets and people like that?
Yes.
You were also asked about that girls' weekend, and I believe that the defendant said that you did a prayer. Did you have more than one prayer over the weekend? Did you guys pray together?
I can't remember specifically, but I assume we prayed over the food and we prayed, there was probably multiple prayers, my guess.
Is that different than when you guys met to cast out the evil spirit of Ned inside of Charles Vallow?
Yes, it felt different.
So you wouldn't equate a prayer as identical to doing a cast out?
Correct. They are different kinds of prayers.
You were asked about why you stayed there that weekend. As someone who was a grown woman and strong in your faith, did you in fact question Lori when she talked about not needing to repent?
I don't remember how I responded I definitely pondered that for a while. I remember talking to others. I can't remember if I spoke specifically with Lori about that at
So
that time.
you were, even though that was something you knew not to be within your faith, you didn't just pack up and run away.
No.
Were there other women there that you were also friends with?
Yes.
People who you're still friends with?
Yes.
These women that you are still friends with, has anything about your relationship with them changed the fact that you remember Lori saying she didn't want to repent?
I don't think so.
Like you didn't say, hey, Christina, I feel like just making up something to say against Lori. What do you think we should talk about?
No.
You didn't sidle up to Nicole and say, Nicole, let's make up a story about Charles being possessed by Ned. What do you think?
No.
Those are just your memories.
Those are my memories.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Are there any questions from any member of the jury? If so, please pass those questions forward. I'm not seeing
Any questions from the jury? Do you guys have any questions?
Stake and contact.
Thank you. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is William McDonald. I am a retired police officer with the city of Chandler.
What are you currently doing?
I am currently teaching criminal justice at Williams Field High School in Gilbert, Arizona.
So you told us you previously worked for the Chandler Police Department.
So
How
there's
long
so
were you
many
with them?
cops that
I was with the
aren't
Chandler.
cops anymore. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. So many cops that appear on trial as witnesses on trial, and they've changed jobs. Have you guys noticed that?
Police Department for approximately 22 years. I'm sorry, 26 years.
Oh, that's a big difference. When did you retire?
I retired in November of 2022.
Okay. Can you tell us what your different jobs were at the Chandler Police Department?
As with all officers, these container files would then be entered into, usually we would use the Celebrite software, as we did in this case. And that software would kind of go through the box and put everything in an organized manner, a manner in which people could read it and make sense of what that information was. We would then create a report, which we would provide to the case agents, and that would pretty much conclude our involvement. We would finalize everything by taking everything that we created, all of our files, all of our reports, notes, pictures, everything. And
180 through 185 are admitted.
And if I can have the Elmo, thank you. Why do you take photos of the phone as you're processing it?
primarily we take
Okay, guys, it's 20 minutes past midnight where I am, so I'm going to call it a day. I was actually counting on Kay Woodcock testifying today. I thought it would be lots of family members. I was hoping Summer Shiflett would testify as well. I think Adam Cox is quite interesting. So unfortunately, there haven't been other family members. Let's just see who this is, yeah. Marissa Francisco.
And I started there in 2004.
So let's kind of go back. What did you do at the Department of Public Safety, DPS?
I was just hoping for more family members today. But yeah, the Adam Cox thing was certainly quite interesting. Certainly reveals quite a lot about one of the trickiest, slipperiest, and subtlest areas in true crime, which is family dynamics. Something that people are typically quite private about. And so we've gotten to know Laurie's family dynamics, I think, a lot better. And you can sort of see why, in a way, why she was pining for this sort of paradise, this sort of fairy tale life, because her life was pretty mundane, pretty ordinary in a sense. And clearly she was trying to transcend her circumstances. Let's just look at a couple of your comments before I skedaddle. Lynn says good night. Lisa says it's much more interesting when Nick covers. Thanks a lot. Scott, what happened to a partner? Yeah, he's been on trial. He was convicted. He's actually on death row. Thanks, Pauline. Yeah, so look out for the next episode on Madeleine McCann. I'll probably be putting that up first thing tomorrow morning. Should be quite interesting. Pauline, I'm going to be, sorry, not Pauline, Yvonne. I'm going to be in Auvers in a couple of weeks' time. So look out, keep an eye on Team Peachtree for a couple of updates in that area. Then just a big thank you to, wow, thanks a lot, Yvonne. I appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks to everyone who gave super chats. Lynn from Canada, Chris Cavey, Hazel, and Yvonne. Thanks to all of you guys. Yeah, I was sort of not going to do a live today just because I'm a little bit sick, but I thought if Laurie's going to be confronting her own family members, that's really going to be worthwhile. I must say she did better than I expected, but then also worse than expected with that other witness, the prepper. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining me. We'll see if I'll cover anything going forward. I certainly want to cover her cross-examining Kay Woodcock, because there's certainly a lot of there's been a lot of interviews that Kay gave and emotion both ways between Kay and Laurie, and it'll be interesting to hear what Kay says on the stand. I mean, Kay doesn't really mince words, so I'll keep tabs on that. Glennis says, I'm missing a live. You're going to have to watch from the beginning. Okay, guys, thanks a lot for being here, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.